Sweden's parliament has passed a law lowering the minimum age to legally change gender from 18 to 16, making it easier to get access to surgical interventions. Now, the law passed with 234 votes in favour and 94 votes against in Sweden's parliament. Well, let's cross to Europe now, and joining us is GB News presenter Darren Grimes, who's in England for us. Darren, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. I really want to get your thoughts on this issue because, in my opinion, I want every person on this planet to have equal rights, have access to the surgeries that they need. But 16, right here in Australia, you can't drive a car by yourself, you can't go out and buy alcohol. But if you're in Sweden, you're considered old enough to change your gender. I just worry it's too young. Darren, what's your take?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on there. Look, I think it's extraordinary that the public polling in Sweden shows that the population have a better grasp of common sense than the political class. You know, this new change says actually that the diagnosis, this new law even says that the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, where a person might experience distress as a result of a mismatch between their biological sex and the gender they identify as, that won't actually be required any longer. So actually, you'll be able to walk in as a 16-year-old, Gabriella, and you'll be able to say, look, I'm 16, I know what I want. I mean, how many of us at 16 knew what we wanted? I had a tattoo when I was 16, Gabriella, right? And I spent a lot of my disposable income 10 years after being 16 having it removed. I was able to actually have those tattoos removed. How many kids will be able to reverse the surgical and medicinal intervention that they're able to access without the need of a formal diagnosis of gender dysphoria now? This is radical in the extreme. I just want to be able to say that we let kids grapple with the turmoil and tumult of puberty and growing up without actually allowing them to make these, I think, what could be quite catastrophic and what have been, in many cases, landmark cases that we've had in this country. And especially since the UK's independent report, the CAS review into all of this, found that actually you've got higher rates of autism in those declaring themselves trans. You've got higher rates of those who are struggling to accept themselves as LGB, lesbian, gay, or bisexual. So in some cases, we're actually saying that you transition in order to get over being gay or with a significant autistic diagnosis. So we're transing away struggling gay and autistic children. I don't know about you. I believe in equality too, but I don't think this spells progress to me.
Yeah, I think it's very concerning. 16 is far too young, I should say, and it's just these are adult decisions. To have the age lowered from 18 to 16, I just think is going backwards, and I'm quite concerned that it could be a slippery slope. Moving on, because there's so much to get through and so much is happening in Europe, a Conservative conference in Brussels has resumed after a court overturned the local mayor's order to shut it down. On Tuesday, Brussels police stormed the National Conservatism Conference to close down the event just as Nigel Farage took the stage. The mayor of Brussels justified the order to ban the conference to guarantee public safety, adding, though, the far right is not welcome. Darren, so much to get through on this topic, but first of all, your reaction to the shutdown.
It's absolutely extraordinary. You know, Brussels is clearly no longer a zone for free thought. It's actually Amir Kur, the mayor in Brussels, had the audacity to actually send the police in to shut down the National Conservatism Conference. This was just a gathering of conservative intellectuals, of politicians, democratically elected, and of writers. What's so scary about those who use pen or speech or the ballot box? Why not challenge those ideas if you find them so morally reprehensible? Why do you have to automatically lurch to smearing people with the far right label, that bogeyman of the far right? Everything from Sky News Australia to Nigel Farage himself is far right. We're all far right. It's absolutely extraordinary. I find all of this, the idea that they're preventing a public disturbance. Well, actually, the police ought to be there protecting people and their democratic right to free assembly and freedom of speech, not in trying to curtail the rights of those who are there being totally, utterly peaceful. Would they do the same thing, Gabriella, I wonder, to a pro-Palestine march going through the streets shouting for intifada or calling for genocide of the Jews? I think not. I think they've got their priorities all wrong. And it just shows how these jumped up left-wing goons think that they're the arbiters of acceptable parameters of speech and debate in a democracy. And I find it absolutely baffling. And I find it really worrying, actually, that the Labour Party in this country, in Britain, actually came out and said, basically, well, they mocked the fact that Suella Braverman, our former Home Secretary, was there, and they basically suggested that it was a laudable thing for the police to be doing. I find that really quite troubling and, frankly, chilling.
And I believe we have that clip. Let's take a listen now to Labor MPs mocking the shutdown.
And of course, a source close to the Right Honourable Member for Fareham, who couldn't be here today with us, Mr Deputy Speaker, because she's currently in Brussels, surrounded by the police who are trying to shut down the event she's attended with some far-right fanatics with whom she has much in common. She said that she is not a fan of the bill. Well, now she knows how the rest of us feel about the Right Honourable Member.
Darren, you touched on this, but just expand as to why this concerns you.
Look, I mean, they're dismissing Suella Braverman, was a former Home Secretary, rather, as far right, and gathering with the far right, and laughing about the fact that the police were there to cramp down on her right to express herself alongside Nigel Farage and Viktor Orban, who, of course, continues to win outright majorities in Hungary. It's just, he seems to be reveling in this shutdown, in giving us a chilling preview of what a Labour government might look like here in, if the polls are to be believed, wielding police power to actually silence voices of dissent, those that disagree with you. I think that's a sobering reminder of the looming threats to our speech and to our liberties over the next 5 years. And I'm so sick and tired of believing in border controls, of believing in biological sex, of believing that actually we've got a problem with rampant Islamists in our country. All of these things will see me dismissed and derided as being far right because they are lazy. They do not want to challenge the ideas because they know the court of public opinion simply isn't with them. So it's so much easier to just dismiss people and besmirch their name via this label. I find that frankly absurd. And as I say, I think it has a real chilling effect on speech and debate on so many issues. They're cancel culture vultures, Gabriella. That's what they are.